In problem 2, we are first have to identify how in general unemployment rate vary with changes in real GDP. We know that already. Unemployment rate closely tracks the output movements in economy. So when the economy is growing, unemployment rate is low, and when economy is in recession, unemployment rate is high. But as we talked about, this relationship is not perfect, and the second part of the question kind of alludes to that. The question says, after several quarters of severe recession, explain why we might observe a decrease in the official unemployment rate. So recession is getting more and more severe, but unemployment rate is going down. What's happening? This is of course due to discouraged workers. Many people will stop looking for work. That's why they will not be counted as unemployed anymore. And in the last part, explain why we could see an increase in the official unemployment rate after several quarters of strong expansion. This is because people start looking for work. People who were originally out of labor force start looking for work when they see that economy improved. In problem 3, we are figuring out what type of unemployment Melanie is facing. In A, after completing a complex programming project, Melanie is laid off, but her prospects of finding a new job is good, and she already passed up offers for low-paying jobs. So the unemployment that Melanie is facing right now is due to friction in the labor market. Just it takes time to get to a new job. We know that her chances of finding a job is very good. So that's why Melanie is experiencing a frictional unemployment. In B, Melanie and coworkers refuse to accept pay cuts. So that should be a number one clue for us. Her employer outsourced their programming tasks to workers in another country. So those jobs or those skills are not needed in where Melanie needs anymore. And this phenomenon is occurring throughout the programming industry. This is clearly a structural unemployment. First, we know that the wages were prevented to adjust downwards, and throughout the industry, the skills are not needed because these jobs are transferred to other countries. This is a structural unemployment. In C, due to the current slump, Melanie has been laid off from her programming job. Her employer promised to rehire her when business picks up. So this is clearly a cyclical unemployment. Melanie lost her job due to current recession, but when the jobs are available again, she will be rehired. So this is a cyclical unemployment. In problem 5, we are given this Statistic Canada data. How many people in the labor force and how many people are unemployed in different provinces in 2 different years. The first part we will have to calculate how many people are employed and unemployment rate later on. What I did, I entered these numbers in this Excel file. You'll be able to download this file in the other folder in UMlearn. So in order to get the employed people, what we need is just the difference between labor force and unemployed people. Remember, people in the labor force are the employed plus unemployed people. So for May 2016, I have the people in the labor force in Alberta minus people unemployed in Alberta. This is how many people in thousands are employed in that province. And I can copy and paste this formula downwards for the other provinces. So let's do that for 2017. For Alberta, this is the labor force there in 2017 minus unemployed people. That gives me the employed people. And again, I can just copy and paste formula to get the employed people overall in all the provinces. And in the later part of the question, we have to calculate the unemployment rate as well. This was the unemployed people divided by the labor force. So for 2016 in Alberta, I have to put the number of unemployed people in the numerator, and I divide that to the people in the labor force for Alberta. So And actually, let's multiply that with 100 to get the unemployment rate. And I'm going to just copy and paste this formula for the other provinces as well. Let's do that for 2017. And the unemployed people in the numerator divided by people in the labor force times 100 will give me the unemployment rate. So this is unemployment rate for Alberta in 2017. And I copy and paste that formula downwards to get the unemployment rate for other provinces. There are a few parts that I'm skipping in the question, but another part that you might be interested will be calculation of labor force participation. Second part of the question gives us the table for the population as well. We need the population, adult population to be able to calculate the labor force participation rate. So for that, we will need, for Alberta, for example, again, we need the people in the labor force. This is the number. I divide that to how many people, adult people in Alberta at that time, times 100 will give me labor force participation rate. So again, I'm going to just copy and paste this formula to get for the other provinces as well. You can do that again for 2017. In the numerator, I have the people in the labor force for that province, for that year, divided by how many people fit in the adult population in Alberta in 2017 times 100 gives me the labor force participation rate. And again, I can just double click here to copy the formula down to get the labor force participation for all the provinces. In problem 6, we are figuring out if in any of the cases below an efficiency wage will be paid. In A, Jane and her boss works together, so boss can monitor Jane constantly. It is less likely that an efficiency wage will be paid in this case. In B, however, Jane sells ice cream without any direct supervision by her boss. Then in order to increase the efficiency, boss will pay Jane an efficiency wage. In C, Jane speaks Korean and sells ice cream in a neighborhood in which Korean is the primary language. So Jane has a rare skill that it will be very hard to replace. That's why, in order to prevent Jane to quit the job, the boss will pay an efficiency wage. We are trying to figure out what happens to the nature rate of unemployment. In A, government reduces the time during which a worker can receive employment insurance. So in this case, the workers will be less willing to spend time searching for a job. This will reduce the amount of frictional unemployment and lower the nature rate of unemployment. In B, more teenagers focus on their studies and do not look for jobs. That will decrease the nature rate of unemployment. So in C, greater access to the internet leads both potential employers and potential employees to use the internet to list and find jobs. In this case, frictional unemployment will go down. Nature rate of unemployment will go down too. In D, union membership declines. In this case, we expect structural unemployment to go down. In 9, we are identifying type of cost of inflation. I'll tell you the type of cost without telling why that is the case. In A, we have a shoe leather cost. In B, we have a unit of account cost. In C, there are just winners and losers, and there is no net cost to the economy. And in D, we have a menu cost. It gives us inflation data about different countries. We have inflation rate in 2005 for all of them, as well as inflation rate between 2006 and 2015. In A, it says, given the expected relationship between average inflation and menu cost, rank the countries in descending order of menu cost using average inflation over the period 2006-2015. So higher the inflation rate, higher the menu cost will be. So in order to figure out the countries that has the highest menu cost first, we have to put the highest inflation countries first. In order to do that, I created an Excel file. Again, you can download this file from UMLearn. What I can do, focusing on average inflation, and I filter the data as well. So you can click on this little arrow and we can choose a descendant here, and then we see the descendant order. So Turkey had the highest inflation during that time, and that's why many cost was highest for Turkey as well. Whereas for Japan, they are in the lowest ranking in terms of many costs and inflation. Now in B, we have to rank the countries in order of inflation rate that most favored borrowers with 10 years loan that were taken out in 2005. So remember that if the inflation rate turns out to be more than expected, that's good news for the borrowers. So basically, we have to figure out the countries where the inflation rate between 2006 and 2015 turned out to be much higher than 2005. Okay, so in order to do that, I just created a difference column, difference between average inflation rate column and the 2005 column. So we can have like average inflation minus inflation rate. This is the difference for Turkey. And if I copy that all the way down, and the higher this difference is, the better for the borrowers. So I can put a little bit more filter here too, and then go in descendant order. So China was best for the borrowers because the difference between average inflation rate and what the inflation rate was in 2005 was largest for China, and the second was Turkey, and the worst for borrowers was in Indonesia.